Hello and welcome to the Inspire Life podcast. My name is Michael. I am your producer and host, and today, super pumped to have an awesome guest, Kristin Rowell, on the show. And she is a functional nutritional therapist here in the Twin Cities. So I won't go too deep into it, but Kristin has an amazing story of completely transitioning her career, going from having a very successful law practice to now doing coaching and helping people when it comes to diet, health, and overall their lives. So she does focus on helping specifically busy professionals, as she has been there and knows what it takes to live a healthful life when that is your lifestyle. And she also just gives a lot of really good wisdom on what it takes to do the inner work and heal to be able to shine your light as bright as you can for the rest of the world. So again, an awesome episode. Before we jump in, just a couple things. So first and foremost, I usually mention this at the end, but if you could please like and subscribe on whatever channel it is you're listening in on, that helps us continue to get amazing guests like Kristin. We've got some other really good guests coming up in the next couple of months as well. It also helps us too with just having people be able to find the show. So we're all about trying to bring the best strategies to help everyone live their most inspired and thriving life. And that's what I got. This episode is brought to you by Inspire Life Chiropractic Center, where we stand for your health being inspired by choice. And from there, I will let Kristin take it away. I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Inspire Life podcast. My name is Michael. I am your producer and host. And today I'm super pumped. We have an awesome guest, Kristin Rowell, and she is a native to Minnesota, which most of our listeners here are in the Twin Cities area. And Kristin, I'll let you introduce yourself. I just want to throw it out there. So Kristin is a professional bodybuilder, and you have also run 25 marathons. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's a lot of marathons, 25 more than I've run. But you've also had quite the journey into the health and fitness space, previously being a lawyer practicing law. So I'd love if you could introduce yourself, and we'll talk about your origin story and how we got here.
I'd love to. Thank you so much for having me. So as you mentioned, I'm Kristin Rowell. I'm a functional nutritional therapy practitioner, which I always laugh. It sounds like a mouthful when I say it. But what I do essentially is offer coaching to people. And I always say that I help them get from where they are to where they want to be. So it's largely through real food nutrition, but because I'm a professional bodybuilder and because I've run so many marathons, I also have a fair amount of insight into the world of exercise and exercise science. So I give recommendations regarding that for a lot of my clients, and I also teach group courses and other things. You mentioned that, just kind of getting into my story. So what I think people find the most interesting about my story is that I practiced law and was a business litigation trial lawyer for almost 17 years. And the short version on my transition, even though I absolutely love the practice of law, had a very successful practice, loved my partners, loved my clients, like there was nothing for me to complain about in terms of my career. Most lawyers, of course, are going to complain that the hours are very intense and that you work a lot. And that was for sure true for me. There's no question. And I still really loved the work. So really my transition was that in the fall of 2017, I finally, after years of talking about it, started a regular meditation practice. And I was spiritually called to leave the practice of law, go back to school for nutrition, and start this business. And people at the time thought I might be crazy, but I always say it's so interesting to me how the universe protects you, because I left the practice of law and started my business in the summer of 2019. And 9 months later, the world shut down and now everyone's wanted to get healthy. So my timing was very lucky in terms of what I'm building.
Definitely. Yeah. And I just want to first and foremost say it's amazing that you were able to tap into your intuition and make that shift, because I think especially if you have such a successful practice, it's work that, like you said, you enjoy doing. To make that transition had to be a little jarring, maybe a little scary at times. So curious if you could speak more to what that transition was like from the moment you realized this was your true calling and what you needed to do, and then how you were able to make that transition in a way where it felt sustainable. If that makes sense.
It does. I'll try to speak about it as I was going through it, as opposed to now having the benefit of hindsight, because now I can see exactly how the universe arranged all of these chess figures for me to lay this out so that I would do this. But at the time, what I can share is in the fall of 2017, I started meditating. It was several months after that I decided to take a signature course that my meditation coach offered for essentially what it helps people do is to find their purpose. And if anyone's interested in this, I tell everyone to go to my meditation coach's website. Her name is Vanessa Files. So her website is just that name, and her last name is Feils.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to her website, you can see there's a program in there called Activate, and you can schedule a call to talk to her about it. But really, it activates you into your soul purpose. So here I am going through that course in the spring of 2018, and I was doing it at nights or on the weekends, and it was an online led course. And then I would do meditations with her each week, where I would really get in my body, I would get present, and I would listen and receive the call in terms of what I was supposed to do. So I always tell people, look, it's not like I thought before this that I was ever going to leave the practice of law. I mean, even when I went through the course and I came up with this business name, and I nowhere in my field of vision did I say, yeah, you're going to leave this really successful career that you love. And then as the year went on, what I realized now, but I didn't understand at the time, is I started to have, and I tell people, anyone who will listen to me about this, I will tell, I started to have things that were what I'd call conflicts or obstacles or difficult situations in my career. Things that had never happened to me in like 16 years, Michael. So things like I had a conflict with a partner that had never come up. I had really confusing decisions from judges that just didn't make sense and that were leaving me feeling very frustrated with the practice. What I can say now in hindsight, being 2020, is that was the universe needing to make some uncomfortability happen in my practice so that I actually would open up to, wow, maybe you're supposed to do something else. Maybe something is better out there for you. And so as I was going through these really difficult periods, and I would say the two most difficult were conflicts I had with a few of my partners as it related to my interest in health and wellness, and some decisions that I was getting from judges that just didn't seem to add up or make sense. And so those things were getting frustrated. I also noticed, and this was probably more towards the fall of 2018 and maybe the spring of 2019, but I started to notice that there were clients who would start asking me for health and fitness advice. Lawyer clients, right? And I thought, well, that's interesting. That's never happened before. Or they'd tell me they want to lose weight and what were my ideas about it. So it's almost like some clients started to present themselves in terms of coaching clients. And I was just taking note of it at the time and thinking, okay, this is interesting. Well, fast forward then to 2019, and I went on a couple different vacations that spring. And I say it was like literally for the purpose of trying to find myself. And one of them was I had an intuitive reading and an astrology reading kind of back to back at a retreat center that I was at. And both of them said, before I even had a word come out of my mouth, you're an entrepreneur. You need to create your own business. The universe really wants you to do this. Like, what are you waiting for? And I felt it so strongly in my bones that I started sobbing. And I thought, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And holy cow, how am I going to do this? I have this huge book of business. I have these clients. I have all these partners I'm loyal to. How could I ever do this? And then what I watched, and this is just fascinating, I watched the universe start to slowly make space and time on my calendar. So all of a sudden, this arbitration that I was supposed to have in April got postponed to August. The series of depositions I was going to take got postponed. A case got settled. Another case settled. There were things, all of a sudden it was like, holy cow, for the first time in over 16 years, I have space on my calendar where I actually could leave if I wanted to. And maybe this is what I have to do, and just get that 5 seconds of courage and walk through the wall of fear and get on the other side of it. So that was a very long answer to your question. I'm sorry, but I feel like the context is important in terms of the evolution of my time frame. And then I finally left in June of 2019.
No, yeah, that was an amazing answer. And you touched on so many important things that we've talked about on this podcast that all of our listeners know Dr. Mel and I are all about. The first thing that you mentioned was the conflict coming up. And that's the universe showing you that, right, something isn't quite aligned here. Something's not right. I mean, I like what you mentioned too, that being able to take that conflict and recognize that those are those uncomfortable situations telling you that it's time to change. Because I mean, I'm not going to speak for everyone, but I feel like maybe a majority of people would continue to say, okay, well, things are just happening. It's just turbulence in my career. Things will settle down eventually. They'll get back to the way they're supposed to be. Whereas you, it sounds like innately you see that type of, or at least through meditation and innately now, you see that conflict and that uncomfortableness as a chance to grow, to find a new path, to find what it is that you're truly passionate about. And then too, just getting signs, like you mentioned, from clients, from colleagues, like, hey, you're really good at this. I've seen what you've done with yourself, with your body. Can you teach me to do that? And I feel like when it comes to like a health coaching space, because I'm a health coach first and foremost, like a lot of us kind of fell into it in that way. I have a very similar story in that sense. So I just want to touch on how it's so cool that you're able to put those pieces together, because oftentimes people don't view life and the universe as a puzzle. We just think that things maybe happen to us, not necessarily for us. And you really tapped into things were happening for you and not to you. Right. And then, yeah, just taking those signs. And then the biggest sign too, that space in the calendar, the universe is saying, okay, I'm going to give you the chance to really step into this. So then making that transition for you, I mean, obviously with fitness, it's a big category. There's a lot of different types of fitness out there, a lot of coaches and people in different ways. So how were you able to, I guess, find your path in the fitness space in particular? Does that question make sense?
It does.
Okay.
So when I went back to school, which I was doing sort of at the end of my law practice, it was through the Nutritional Therapy Association, and I happen to now sit on the board. So
nice.
of that association, which I just love that program. I think it's one of the best programs in the country. And so I became a functional nutritional therapy practitioner and graduated at the end of 2019. And I was really already serving clients, and they knew I was still in school, but I was doing some coaching, and then I was doing full functional nutritional therapy once 2020 hit. So the fitness piece of it, to get to your question, one of the things, well, two things I'd say. Number one, I think that what's missing a lot in the context of the discussion around nutrition and how we feed our bodies is what I preach about a lot, which is the importance of strength training. And it is so huge. And I was one of these nerds who got interested in it when I was like 14 years old. And I happen to have the kind of musculature. I mean, I'm a total mesomorph. I put on muscle pretty easily. And I watched my father get up and exercise in the morning before he went to work as a dentist. And so when I went to law school, just like when I was practicing law, I was up at the gym before law school. I'd be then sitting in class at 8 a.m. and I would have my working out, whether it was running, lifting, whatever it was, because I knew it was the way that it would set off my day appropriately. But a lot of the people that I'm serving, so this is kind of the second point I want to make, because I'm serving what I describe as the old me, it's really executives, lawyers, doctors, dentists, professionals. So it's people that just by the nature of what they do for a living do not have a lot of extra time. And so I can really relate to them. And so I always say that I serve the old me, because I've come up with meals that are very nutrient dense, but they're very efficient. And so they're not going to spend hours in the kitchen putting 24 different ingredients into a meal, because people don't have time for that. And yes, I may stretch them a little bit as we continue in our work together, because I work with people on a package basis, 3 months, 6 months, or a year. I may stretch them to kind of expand their horizons, but I'm really introducing them to how can you be as efficient with your time as possible and get the maximum value from what you put in your body and how you spend your time. Meaning strength training very intensely. And no one believes me, but I tell them I strength train twice a week for 30 minutes each time. And I became a professional bodybuilder under that model, because I do everything to failure. And I strength train at a gym called Discover Strength, which I send most of my clients to, simply because it's such an efficient and effective workout, because it's 30 minutes full body twice a week. So I think one of the kind of value adds I would say I give, or how I kind of found my niche, which is a little bit what I heard in your question, even though you didn't use that word.
Yep, exactly.
It's really, and you know this because of your journey, we end up serving, we had to have gone through that journey ourselves and then come to, oh, I'm uniquely positioned to heal that person, or help that person rather heal themselves, because I healed myself and I can identify with where they're at. I know what it feels like to be constantly running in your sympathetic nervous system. I know what it feels like to literally feel like you can't take a breath at your desk. I know what it feels like to have low stomach acid because you're wolfing down your food because you're married to the billable hour and you feel like you don't have time to eat. I know what it feels like to have the pressures of alcohol around you all the time and to be very intentional about making a different choice sometimes, or all the time or whatever. So does that answer your question? I mean, it's the fitness component. I think just to get back to it's always been a priority of mine. And I work very hard to help my clients understand that yes, food is a huge component, but you have to prioritize movement as well.
Yep. You touched on so many important things, and I can already tell we might have to have you back on because I have so many questions I want to ask you, and we don't have the time today to go over it. I think the biggest thing that you just shared there, two of them. One, and everyone who listens to my stuff knows that resistance training is just superior when it comes to exercise, when it comes to the most bang for your buck, how you're spending your minutes exercising. Resistance training, strength training is going to be the number one thing to focus on. And it sounds like,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Michael, but you're talking to a girl who ran 25 marathons. And I would still say the exact same thing that you just said.
Yep.
I don't care about cardio. I want you strength training and then just moving as much as you can through the day. Walk, stand for meetings like I'm doing now, move, those kinds of things. So I apologize, I interrupted you, but I agree 100%.
Yeah, no, that's huge. I love that. And one of the things that I share with my clients, and I lost 150 pounds and have sustained it. And I, up until 2019, did not run a single mile. Okay. So I lost over 150 pounds without running a single mile. So that tells you right there, all that you need to know when it comes to strength training.
Yes.
But then the other thing that you mentioned that I think is so key, especially when it comes to coaching and finding a health, nutrition, fitness coach, whoever it is, find someone who has walked the walk that you want to walk. And that's what you've really done a great job of doing. And I just think that's, from a coaching perspective, like coaches, we have the education, we know the science, right? I love, in our initial conversation before we even met for this podcast, you were telling me about you're doing the research on the fasting, and I love that you consume all the information, because that's super important. You got to have a coach who knows what they're talking about when it comes to the actual science. And you also need coaches who have been through what you're trying to do, because they're going to be able to truly empathize with you. And when you get to a point where maybe you feel stuck, you're at a plateau, you have some ambivalence, you don't know what the next step is going to be, those coaches know what that step is. And that's why you hire them, for when you get to that point and you need to have that breakthrough. And that's what it sounds like you have really been able to hone in on, is helping, especially busy professionals who don't even feel like they have an extra 10 minutes in their day, be able to be the most efficient and get those results that they want. So
exactly. And that's why it's so funny, because while I was in that program called Activate, learning and trying to figure out my soul's purpose, the name of my business, Energetically Efficient, came to me in a meditation. I mean, so many people have said to me, like, that's such a cool name. How'd you come up with it? I said, well, my higher self told me that's what the business name was while I was in a meditation. And so just kind of calling that into being. So yes, it's been really fun. And I always say that I continue to call in experiences to be able to help my clients and teach them and guide them. So for example, I'm giving a talk in Omaha at a conference in August. I'm going to be talking all about digestion, which of course is a massive topic. I could talk about that for 5 hours. But in the time that I have, one of the things I'm going to share is, hey guys, I know that if I show you this photo of me on stage bodybuilding and I'm ripped and I have all these abs, it looks fantastic. But here's also a photo of me. And I'm going to show a photo of me with a huge distended belly that looks like I'm 8.5 months pregnant when I was not, because I had caused a bunch of digestive distress. And just to help people say, look, if you have these symptoms, this is what it could be. If you have these symptoms, this is what it could be. And I had to heal this myself. And who else has dealt with digestive issues, and just sort of relate to the audience that way? Because the reality is, and it's my favorite quote, which I'm sure you know, is Ram Dass, we are all just walking each other home. And it's so true. I am learning things on my journey that allow me to help and inspire others on their journey. I also have healers and teachers and mentors who have walked their journey, who are inspiring me on my journey. And when we all do better, we all do better. When we all get better, we all get better. Gone are the days, and I could talk about this topic for an entire podcast. Gone are the days of lack and scarcity and competition and ego-driven behavior. And oh my gosh, if you get that thing, then I'm going to be lacking in some way. No. There's enough to go around for everyone. If every single human on this planet was able to truly find their purpose and serve in that way, there would be no competition. There would be no lack, because we're all here to serve our unique purpose and lift each other up. And I really believe that. I know it sounds like a lot of woo-woo BS, but I really believe it.
It's amazing. I had never heard that quote. So I thank you for sharing that. I wrote it down. I always take notes during these podcasts, and I learned so much, and I love this. I could geek out with you about digestion, about nutrition. I do want to hear more about your marathon stories as well, but we don't have the time today. I do want to retouch though what you said, in that it's something that like our business coaches say too. You cannot become so wealthy that someone else is going to not be wealthy from it. You're not going to become so fit or so well, or your highest well-being self, and that's not going to force someone else to be less. We uplift each other. Right.
Yes.
We're communal beings. Humans are communal beings in nature. So the more that we're learning from others who have walked their walks and continuing to walk our walk up the mountain per se, we're going to bring others with us. So
Yes.
kind of a metaphor for what you're saying. And okay, so I do want to touch on too, before we end, I'd love to hear more about, your business, obviously, and how people can get in touch with you. I know you're on Instagram quite a bit, and that's probably one of the best places. So if you could share your social media handles, your business, and then I have one question after that.
Of course.
Before we wrap up. Yeah.
Of course. So my website, which is brand new, I just launched a new website in the last couple of weeks. So I'm super excited about it. It's just energeticallyefficient.com. My Instagram handle is MN for Minnesota. So MN Golden Girl. And that's probably the social media I'm the most active on. Kristin Rowell on LinkedIn. I have a Twitter account that I don't use, but it's Golden Girl MN because I think MN Golden Girl was already taken. And then the person was removed from Twitter for violating some kind of rules. That was not me.
Classic.
Right.
Yeah.
So I had to change the Twitter handle. I should probably change it to something else. Anyways, so those are the main things. I think I have a Facebook. Yes, I have Facebook also. And so just my name on Facebook, but those are the primary ways to get a hold of me. And if anyone's interested in my services, because I do offer one-on-one coaching, I have group services. I also host retreats. So I know you guys host retreats as well. And my business partner and I, who's my meditation coach, who I spoke about earlier, she and I host retreats all around the world. And we're offering one in Utah in September and in Tulum, Mexico in November, which we're very excited about. But all those details are on my website. So yes.
Okay. So energeticallyefficient.com.
Yes.
I'll get that on there, and then I'll find your social. I have you on Instagram, and I'll find you on the socials and put those in the show notes as well. So definitely get in touch with Kristin.
And you can link to all of my social media through the website. Perfect. All of that is on the website. Yeah.
It's all on the website. One-stop shop.
Yes.
Okay. Last question. So I'm not sure if you've tuned into our podcast yourself, but I always ask this one question at the end. It's pretty broad in whatever direction you want to go, but it's really just, what's the one piece of wisdom or one thing that you want to share with our listeners to have them take forward into their lives going forward from here?
Yeah, great question. The one piece of advice I would say that I feel like is really important, especially where we're at on the planet right now, is that there is no more important work that you can be doing than the work you're doing on yourself. It is critical on the planet right now because it really is how we get through what many are describing as such a difficult and confusing time over the last 2 years. This is all about the journey inward and the journey home. So I do a lot of self-work. I have a lot of different healers who help me with that. And then I also have my own regular meditation practice. And so I'm spending time by myself each day to really tune in to my higher self so that I can be led by that. And so that I don't want to say stay above the fray as if I'm above other people. That's not what I mean. When I say stay above the fray, I mean to not get pulled in to lower vibration frequencies that are continuing to polarize the planet. So I've been asked before why I don't chime in on certain things on my social media. And the reality is because I don't direct my energy or my attention there. I'm very focused on keeping my energy high and keeping my vibration high. And I believe that I'm a better service to the planet by doing that as opposed to becoming any part of these polarized discussions. You name the topic, they're out there. Everyone knows. So I feel like that's probably the best piece of advice I could give to people is to really work on yourself.
Focus on yourself. Kristin said it best. You've heard it on this podcast before too, right? The more we focus on ourselves and increasing our internal frequency, the more that can reverberate from ourselves into our greater society and communities and uplift others. So Kristin, this was super fun. We're going to have you back on because I have so many more questions for you. Have an awesome time in Omaha. I know that's coming up soon. And I'll link all your info. And if you're interested, check out her retreats. Kristin, you're an amazing light in this world. Continue to shine that light bright for us, please.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciated the opportunity.
Awesome. And for all of our listeners, as always, until next time, keep inspiring. Thank you. Thanks for tuning into the Inspire Life podcast today. If you enjoyed this episode, like I mentioned at the beginning, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you're on Spotify and iTunes, give us a 5-star. If you're on YouTube, leave us a comment. We love to get feedback. Bring on guests that you might want to potentially hear from as well. Also, if you can hop on over to Facebook, enjoy the Inspire Twin Cities community. That's where Dr. Mel and I interact with our community, share all of our content, and help you continue to live your most inspired and thriving life. And as always, until next time, keep inspiring. Thank you.